Davis, and we got a special program for you today. We also have this anniversary that we're celebrating, one of the most important anniversaries in our history. This is the day that Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, on the balcony of the Moraine Hotel. And we are talking to our neighbors around the state, and we've got one of them right now on the phone. You're going to recognize her. She is, of course, the very, very famous Miss Betty Colbert. Miss Betty, thank you so much. I know you're leaving for an appointment, but where were you on this day 55 years ago?
Oh, I was at work during that time. I was a community organizer for the Dallas Warm Poverty Program. So
Oh,
I was a community organizer over the South Dallas area, the real South Dallas area, and we were working. And of course, we had been involved. I had been involved in the movement from college. So moving into that, I had been involved in the real civil rights movement, as I call it, where we were
absolutely.
involved in sit-ins and protesting and the whole lunch counter thing, and from John Lewis training us about protest and how to do. So I was at work, and I was just when we heard it, wasn't like instant now, like things are now. We had to get it on the news, breaking news coming in on our TV programs.
Yep.
And we were all just devastated because, that was the man who we followed. That was the man who we looked to for directions.
Absolutely. Now, so Bill was John Lewis training you at the time? Training the war on poverty?
He trained us in Austin back in 1962, 63, when they came. They sent teams out to train us how to protest. That's when we had started the first sit-ins around the country.
Okay.
And so Texas was involved, Austin particularly, because that's where the University of Texas was, and Houston Tulsa was there. So most of those protests, if you can remember, well, maybe don't remember, but most of them involved college students. So they had people, they had teams to come around and train us on how to protest and what to do with the lunch counters. And it was a mixed group of white students from UT and black students from Houston Tilson.
Okay, Houston Tilson was one of our HBCUs. How far apart were those two cities, Miss Betty?
Well, we were really just across the freeway. We were over on the east side of 35, and they were over on the west side. So really just the freeway apart. But of course, during that time, black students weren't even housed on campus. During that time, they were put into off-campus apartments. They didn't have on-campus housing for black students back then. And, people don't realize that wasn't too long ago.
No, it wasn't too long ago. We're talking 55 years ago. We're talking actually now about the assassination of Dr. King on this very day, 55 years ago. And our guest who we're catching between meetings is the very famous, knowledgeable, wonderful Betty Colbert, who we called on at the last minute, and she found time for us. But Betty, how far have we come since in those years? I mean, what did we fall short? What are we running on empty, or what do you think about what would Dr. King? This is a better question. What would Dr. King say about today?
Well, Dr. King, first of all, would be disappointed that after the civil rights movement and after all of the legislation and laws were passed, that for a while black people embraced it and moved forward. And somehow or the other, we allowed liberals and progressives to sell us a bill of goods to think that what we were doing and the progress that we made was not enough. So now, somehow or the other, they have flipped the script. And now, all of a sudden, we've become the depressed and oppressed group of people who constantly want to holler about racism. And that's not nothing but a ram in the bush, because when you constantly holler about racism and you black and you've had the opportunity to do everything in the world you want to do, all you need to do is do it.
Yeah.
But yet, you sit back and complain, and you can see where the generations have dropped the ball.
Yeah.
Because you see where they dropped the ball.
Absolutely.
So it's not about, racism. It's about us dropping the ball and not following through on the civil rights movement and Dr. King's dream.
Absolutely.
The man would be disappointed and rumming in his grave if he would see where we are now. When he talked about black men and white men and children holding hands, he would be devastated to know that black men are killing black men at the rate we're doing, and black women gyrating and showing out their body and on national TV with their breasts hanging out and all this false hair. And you gonna holler about black and white, but you got a head full of Indian hair or synthetic hair on your head going down to your behind. Dr. King would be disappointed.
Well, I know you got to go. You only gave us a few minutes, but I have to ask you a question.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I mean, I love it. What I want to ask you, and then my producer has a question for you. Today in New York, we have this protest with, I guess, Alvin Bragg, the elected black DA, and we have a Harvard grad, and we have Donald Trump going into the courtroom. I want your honest opinion about that, because what do you think is going on up there? You think he is an entertainer? What is, I have to ask you, because you are always going to give us the truth.
Mr. Bragg is doing his job. Oh. And here's what's pitiful.
Okay.
One of the black people with their signs that say, I support Braggs. See, I think everybody knows Donald Trump. Well, first of all, Donald Trump been a crook and a thug all his life. He's the only thug that got elected to be president of the United States of America. So Donald Trump is true to Donald Trump and what he's always been. But where are the people up there protesting and supporting Mr. Bragg? Where are y'all signs?
Okay.
Donald Trump is who he is. And the thing about it, Donald Trump ain't no racist. Donald Trump is Donald Trump, a thug who make money. He don't care black, white, green, or blue. This is about the money with Donald Trump, and he has made a fool like all them little people on Social Security and SSI who get in them F-150s and drive to try to protest and stand up for him. He done made a fool like all of them. And we not in New York, ain't nowhere to park no F-150 on the street in New York. And you got to pay a hotel bill if you want to spend the night there.
Yeah,
so they can't afford to go to New York to protest the Trump. But where are the people in New York that support Mr. Bragg who elected him? We need to show our support when our people are right. I ain't complaining about what no white folks don't do. I'm complaining about what black folks don't do.
On the phone is Betty Colbert. We asked her opinion. We always know we're going to get the truth when we do that. I know you got to go, but I've got one little bit of question. I promise this will be the last question. That
you got about 2 more minutes.
Oh, you got about 2 more minutes. We put a picture up so you know who we're talking about. Had a distinguished career when she was working, and now she's training other people. By the way, what are you doing these days?
Well, I'm still on the DHA. I'm the chair of the Dallas Agriculture Board, and the mayor appointed me to this homeless task force. And that homeless task force is way more work than I ever envisioned it would be, but it's real.
The homeless task force. Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
Betty, I'm happy we can always call on you. I remember the war on poverty days. I was in college during that time, and I want to thank you for just giving us these few minutes.
All right, then.
I'm going to call you back now. We got to get you in about us. Okay. So
okay. All right.
Okay. She said, Spider says he is buying lunch. So, we're going to have a good time. We're going to spend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
That is Betty Colbert, who is a community activist and has held various jobs throughout her illustrious career. The most important part that I remember poignantly was her 8 or 12 years. Oh, Betty, how long were you with Dallas board, DFW board?
Oh, I served 11 years. I chaired it for 2.
Okay, you were the president of the board. What was the title?
But chair of the DFW board, that was 2 years.
Okay.
I was on the board for 11 years, but I served 2 years as chair.
Exactly. But your voice was heard around the world for 11 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I know that because we used to keep up with her meetings. DFW board, that's our Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. And if you don't know the history about Betty Colbert, she was the president, but I knew her at the Dallas Commissioner's Court. all over the city in important jobs where she always told the truth. And if you want the truth, as Spider says, give her a call. Betty, where is the DFW airport? Is it in? Is it? Where is DFW airport? Is it in both counties or in Fort Worth?
Oh, it's in part of Dallas County and Fort Worth. But,
that's what I thought.
Part of it is in the county of Dallas. It's the urban part.
Okay.
The other is in the other is
Tarrant County. Yeah, part of it is in Tarrant County, right? Okay, because it's I remember the original acreage was something like 17,000 acres that the former mayor Eric Johnson bought. 18,000 acres. Yeah. It's an all little city. Okay, and you bought some more properties. Just real quick, didn't they buy another 10,000? They bought something else a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they about for some runway expansion, but I got to go. My other meeting.
Okay, she's got to go. We got to go. Bye, Betty Colbert. Thank you so much, Betty Colbert, and we love you dearly. Bye bye. Whenever you can catch her, that's the most important thing. Whenever you can catch her, because she's still active, even being retired, and even being known all over the state of Texas and beyond. And I have a guest here today. How are you? Did you know Betty Colbert? Do you know her?
I did not know her, but it sounded like she was an extraordinary woman.
She's just herself. And she's always been herself. I would go down to Commissioner's Court with all the commissioners that we have down. And by the way, to the audiences, my sisters and brothers, actually 5 county commissioners. They're not 1, they're not 2, there are 5 county commissioners that serve Dallas County. And that's a story that we really need to tell, because Dallas County is the only was the only blue county in the state of Texas for years. Okay, so because it's basically a ruby red state.
But we're not blue no more, right?
Dallas County has not been blue in about 20 years. Yes. But I will get statistics on that, because we want you to know that if we're having a paradigm shift, it's happening. And it's happening in Texas, because Texas is one of the largest states. During the Biden election, there were several counties that voted blue, that voted for the Democrats. So if you are not voting, and this whole thing is about voting, we cannot stress that enough. You gotta vote. You gotta vote. Oh, I'm so happy we got her on the phone. Thank you, Spider. And then thanks to my producer for all of you that are there. He then piped in her picture. Internet and technology is so wonderful. So we get Betty on the phone at the last minute. But however, Spider's going to take her to lunch for that. She's taking us all to lunch. But anyway, that's the kind of resource we have on this holiday. This is a holiday for all of America. It is an American holiday. We celebrate the birthday of Dr. King. We celebrate it on January 15th. That is a national holiday, a federal holiday in this country, and not only our country and other allies of the United States, but on his assassination date, which is today, April 4th, 1968. Right. The assassination's bullet killed Dr. King. I was working my second job the night that we heard. I had divorced my first husband, and I was working 2 jobs. And I was working as a key punch operator in downtown Dallas. And my brother calls. We didn't have cell phones in those days. My brother calls the front office and he says, I am picking you up in 10 minutes. And, as a young mother, I was thinking, it must be something that happened with the boys. My sons were very, very young then, 3 and 4. He didn't tell me over the phone what was the problem. He just said, I'm picking you up, period. So he comes downtown Dallas at Trinity Insurance Company, picks me up, and I said, what's wrong? He said, I'm glad I was sitting down because, he said Dr. King has been assassinated. And at that time, it was late evening, dusk done evening, that when we got the news, even though he was killed at another time. By the time we get from down Irving Street into South Dallas, I can remember on the corner of Irving and Colonial,
Mm-hmm.
right now where Martin Luther King is, there were at least a couple of hundred people already gathered there. Things were already starting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we still had to go pick up my sons, and somebody else was working. So my brother was gathering us all up
Mm-hmm.
to get us into one place,
Yes.
which is what families normally do. And around 8 o'clock that very same night in South Dallas on the corner of Colonial and Irving, the fire department was there. All of the chaos started happening in all of the American cities in the
Mm-hmm.
South. The mountaintop speech was held the night before in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say a shout out to Mr. Calvin Salisbury, who is
Okay.
writing this book. I want you to meet him because both of you guys have written a book. But Calvin Salisbury is a coach, and he's actually from Memphis. He was
Okay.
8 years old
When it happened.
when it happened, and he's
Uh-huh.
just now coming to grips with it. So now he's writing about it.
Okay.
And I have to tell you this story. I have to tell you this story. It's in his book. It's not my book. It's the name of the book is the Mind of a Black Man. And he says in the book about Memphis, the dispute was about the sanitation workers
Mm-hmm.
not being paid a fair wage for picking up the trash. It had been going on several years. Dr.
Mm.
King had messages from all over the world to come and speak. So he finally goes to Memphis to speak with the sanitation workers. We all know that part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. King does the speech. He is assassinated the next day. But the part we don't know is that they gave the sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee, a year later, a 5 cent raise. A 5 cent raise. And then a year later, they actually fired them all and hired a white contracting company to pick up the trash in the whole city of Memphis, Tennessee.
And probably paid them what?
Oh, they paid them their fee, but the
Yeah.
sanitation workers didn't have any benefits. They didn't have vacation. They had no insurance. None of those things. We're talking 1968. We're talking about the Dr. King's assassination.
Yeah.
What's going on around the country. And even though we have a lot of other things that are less important, let's find out some of the history about what happened the day that Dr. King was assassinated in the United States. Thank you, Betty Colbert. Thank you again.
Yes.
How are you?
Yes, I am wonderful.
Lady
And
Charles?
it is so good to be here with you today, Miss Davis.
This is a very important day, not because of what's going on in New York. It's an important day because of what happened 55 years ago.
Mm-hmm. We got a long way to go, Miss Davis. We have made some good lead way, but we got such more long of a way to make some more. And it has to start with us coming together in unity.
Yeah. Betty made a very good point, I thought. Betty Colbert made a very good point. She said because the younger generation didn't pick up the ball and run with it.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's important to, Dr. King would be 90 years old. He was born in 1935, again, I think 1935. 39. So he'd be 90 years old, Spider, about 90 years old. So that generation is all getting older.
Mm-hmm.
My sons like for me to talk about, I've got put out of school in 1962.
Mm-hmm.
60, okay, 60. I was in Texas Southern. That's not 62. I'm doing 64, 65, 66. So a lot of African Americans didn't understand the movement.
Mm-hmm.
And as Betty Colbert said, it was all college students. It was all college students, except for the people that Dr. King and I have to say some of the other civil rights leaders were training the college students.
Mm-hmm.
But that generation, my point here is that generation is now 80 and 90 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So they're no longer, they started the ball started bouncing, it started running, but it has to be somebody there to pick the ball up and carry it further.
It does. And you have to remember history. It's so funny that we're talking about this today, Miss Davis, because just on yesterday, when I was looking at some homes in purchasing to buy, and I was looking in the SMU area, and someone said to me, "Why are you looking in that area when you know they have a problem with us?" I said, "Because I'm the little mini Rosa Parks. No one can tell me where to live." And I said, "My money is just as green as theirs." And so, yes, it is so important, the generation, the millenniums, to keep the dream alive and keep it going. Right. However, it starts in the homes.
Amen.
So.
Yes, it does. It does start at home in teaching your children, buying the books. Gosh, I have so many people to say thank you to for today because I started getting phone calls earlier. The war on poverty. Have you ever heard of the war on poverty? What? You ever heard
I
that?
have not heard that, but poverty is before us.
Yeah, it was. It was. You're right. It was, and that was a massive program. Operation Breadbasket wasn't a big program. I'm talking the 60s, probably the top of the 70s, and there were thousands of people that used to work in those programs. Just absolute thousands. It's a day it's a day of remembrance. So what did you decide about your house? I mean, I know that's a personal question, but
I was just looking in the SMU area, was trying to find a home with the square footage I wanted, the right bedroom size. And the person kept saying, "You wasting your time. Why would you even do that to your children?" I said, "This is the problem. Our children need to know."
okay.
You know, and so I'm like, I thought that was a fair response, because if you begin to talk to a lot of our young people, they don't understand history. They don't really know racism and how they killed our men and beat the women and took our kids and fed them to alligators. They really don't know what has happened. And I do believe if the young people will really pay attention and start accepting the history that our forefathers had to go through and deal with, picking cotton and so forth, I just do believe they'll have a different look at America within itself, because America has not been America for a long time, Miss Davis.
My guest is Lady Charles. She's a relationship. She's been talking about relationships for the last couple of years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so finally she says, "I don't understand why men can't make a commitment." I said, "Well, you have women that can't make commitments. You have, so where are you going?" But understanding is almost everything.
Yes.
Get a clear understanding of what, and you and I've had this conversation, of what every mate wants. But back to the housing issue before we get to relationships, and then I'll take a little bit of a break. But housing in Dallas is very unusual. Dallas has two cities in the city. Dallas has University Park and Highland Park. And they are their own cities with deed restrictions. And I'm sure you found that out.
Yes.
However,
and they tried to keep us out, the people of color.
They got a few in there right now, but they do. But it has a deed restriction, and I think the houses are for sale over there. But because, so just keep going, go speak at their city council meeting. That's, you're doing something that is really important, I think, to our children. Tenacity and persistence, because we're not only people of color. I mean, we're African Americans, we're Black people, but now we have Arabs and Hispanics, and we have people that can afford to live in Highland Park, if they want to. I think their doors might be open. I don't know anything about that, the deed restrictions, or that city council person, but keep going. I'll be interested in how this works out.
I do know this, Miss Davis, that Martin Luther King would tell us to never let them tell you where you can and can't live.
Yes.
Never allow the Caucasian man to restrict your elements.
Absolutely.
Because we are free, and our forefathers and sisters, they went through, Martin Luther King fought for us to be free.
Yes.
And I don't understand how, and once again, it starts at home. We mothers, we daddies, we got to teach our children, our youth, that you have the right of opportunity to any and everything, just like they do. And do not allow them to talk you down, to discourage you, to detour you, or even separate you and
Right.
put you in. Because that separation time, that's over with. You can't drink from this fountain because it's the whites only, the blacks over there. We have been counted out for so long. It's time to be counted in. And you
I
got to
agree.
have the bulldog tenacity to be counted in. I ain't
But
going no.
let's go back home. Let's go back home.
Okay.
Because I think that is, and you correct me, you're probably more on top of this than I am. But at home, we don't have the same homes we had in the 50s and the 60s.
We do not.
Or
Because
do we have them? I mean, I could be absolutely wrong. If I'm
we,
wrong, good.
I mean,
I'll say that I'm just wrong.
if we're talking about the inside of the home, and versus the shell, Miss Davis,
The good looking outside of the house.
we don't, and I've noticed that a lot of us will go purchase homes in low poverty areas, which there's nothing wrong with that. But my thing would be, why? This is something you're going to own. Your name is on it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go and purchase your home in a valuable area. Why? Number one, because you're paying taxes on that home. Why? Number two, because the schooling for your children, if you have children, you're paying taxes on that. And that is important, to have your kids in the school that is going to be rated as high rating and where they can get the best education they can. I've noticed what they do. They go build these brand new schools in all of these white areas and give them the best education. And then over here in the lower income areas, or per se the black areas, we have to fight for funding. That's
Betty said something about, I'm sorry to call her Betty, Betty Colbert. Just said something about that. She said she was still working on the housing.
Yes,
the housing program.
There's some problems going on even with the housing program. I just seen recently they're getting ready to have a meeting about the housing that's going on here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area concerning the blacks. So there are some things that are going on under the table, behind the closed doors, and we as a people got to stand up, Miss Davis.
But now, are you okay? Let's say black. Are you saying black and brown? Because this is Texas. Where are you from again?
I am from Dallas.
Okay, and we talk about African American, but have you been in a classroom lately? I mean a classroom. Let's say a fourth grader. Fourth grader is 8 years old.
Okay, I have a third grader.
Ah, that's right. I keep forgetting. So what is the dominant culture in that class?
Well, it depends on the area.
Okay.
See, because my kids used to, I have older children, and they used to be in the Allen ISD.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
And in the Allen ISD, as we know, that's Collin County.
Mm-hmm.
The back door to McKinney, and on the other side of Allen is Plano, Texas. Now, the schools in Plano, Texas, you having more of the Hispanics and more of the Middle Eastern that are going to those schools.
Okay.
And then you have the Caucasian, and we are real last kind of on the list in the Plano ISD.
Okay.
But now if you go over to the McKinney side, McKinney ISD, you know, you got a high rate of Caucasian.
All right.
And you have Middle Eastern. It's very low for Hispanics. And when it comes to us, not that many of us as well.
Okay.
But now if you go into Allen has been growing, and it's very diverse in Allen. However, you still have a low majority of African Americans out there
in the classes. Okay. So if I go up 75, I'm going to hit a bunch of cities. I hit McKinney, Plano, Richardson, and then I remember Melissa.
You're going to hit Richardson,
okay.
Then Plano, you're going to hit Allen, you're going to hit McKinney, and then after that, you're going to hit Melissa, and then you're going like toward in Sherman and in the little country area. Okay. And the further up north 75 you get, the lesser we begin to deteriorate.
Okay. So we're still living in a city is what you're basically saying.
Yes. And this is why I like to live in areas. I grew up most of my life in suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I don't appreciate my mother for that, because I needed the diversity. I needed to know what's the ghetto like, low poverty, this and that. But we've always lived in, it was either Plano or it was Flower Mound. And we know Flower Mound had a real big issue not too long ago about blacks living out there with housing. There was a riff-raff between those that had DH vouchers that were trying to move to Flower Mound.
Is that the low income voucher?
Yes, the Section 8 vouchers, and the Walker Settlement vouchers, and they were not wanting to accept those in Flower Mound. And so there was a riffraff with that was going on in Flower Mound. And so I noticed that when I used to be younger and would move places, I would move to the places where they were having the problems because I was determined. I'm going to make a spot and a foot here because y'all can't tell me where to live. So I did live in Flower Mound. And I remember years ago when I moved to Flower Mound, I was the only black on that street.
With children.
And when I moved in there, what really blew my mind was the neighbors came and bought us cookies. Well, I was like, heck, I don't want to eat y'all cookies because I know y'all don't want us out here. And then I thought, what's in the cookie? But
that's interesting because I haven't had children in school for a while. So if I go to Richardson and Plano, the dominant culture is what?
Richardson, the dominant culture will be, there's a lot of Hispanics in Richardson. Plano, you have a lot of Middle Eastern on one side. Now you have some blacks in Plano, but you still got a large predominant of Caucasians in Plano. And then it depends on the zip codes as well. Because I know in the zip code of 75025 in Plano.
75025.
Yes, that's a lot of Middle Eastern that's over there. If you go to 75023 in Plano, you have a lot of Hispanics on that side.
Now, are they in public school or are they in private schools?
Well, you have a lot of the Hispanics in the public school, some Middle Easterns in the public, but you got a lot of these academies where the Caucasians and the Middle Eastern are putting their children in the academies, or they are the I don't think they have any charters out in Plano yet. If they do,
no charters?
Not that I've known. Perhaps they may have put one out there now, but normally in the high money-making areas, they don't put the charter schools. They normally put the charter schools on the borders of the high areas or in the low poverty areas or in the maybe low income close to areas, these charter schools. Because I know like in Haslett does not have a charter school. Haslett have the public schools. Haslett has you can find little academies or Christian schools in the church.
Private schools.
Privates, yes, but they do not have charter. And, with Haslett, it is, it's not that diverse as folks think it is. It is really not.
Okay, so Haslett is where?
Haslett
is way
north
up there.
of Fort Worth.
Okay.
And it is like close to the areas of Trophy Club, Roanoke, which we know have been known to be very high racist areas. Even though there are blacks out there, it's not that many of them, but we do know Roanoke, Trophy Club are high concentrated areas for the Caucasian race.
Okay. Didn't the football player have an estate out that way? He was in a little city by himself. I know he used to watch my 5:30 a.m. shows.
What city would that be? Because
there's another little city up there.
You have Roanoke, Trophy Club.
If I take Preston Road all the way up, we're talking about school systems.
Salina?
No, it's not Salina. I'll think of it in a minute. And
going up Preston Road.
Prosper. That's it.
Now I noticed a lot of us have been moving to Prosper.
Really?
I've noticed there's a lot of land in Prosper. But the housing is extremely high out in Prosper. And I mean, you get what you pay for. And a lot of us do need to venture out because they're going to get land and take over land. I'm still on Miss Davis. Where is our 40 acres and a mule? We have not seen it. They have stolen it from us. And I am 48 and I was born in 74.
what you're looking at now is who own homes. And this is in Texas. 72% of the homes in Texas are white, and 43% of the homes in Texas are African American.
Who own the homes? You see, we got a long way to go.
I see we have a long way to go,
Yes.
and Texas is a big state. But I have a question for you. Only about 10% of Texas is occupied. So as we continue to grow, see, everybody's asking me, why is everybody coming to Texas?
Oh, let me tell you, one thing is people know that these states are getting ready to separate.
What do you mean? What the states are getting ready to separate?
Yes, there's going to be a separation of states, and Texas is going to become a state standing alone. And a lot of people are not doing their history and
Yeah.
knowing that this separation is getting ready to take place. And a lot of folks are leaving California because they starting to realize all this money that they're paying for homes up there and this struggling they're doing. And you got a lot of wealthy folks in California, but they're realizing, hey, let me go to Texas, because what I'm paying for up here in California, I can get 2 or 3 of those homes in Texas. We got a lot of big businesses that are moving here to Texas. A lot of money is coming into Texas. So we got folks from California, people from Florida that are coming in and taking over our housing. Us that have always been here in Texas, in the Dallas, the Fort Worth area, and they're purchasing up home. Now, when homes go on the market, just as quick as they go on the market, they're leaving like less than 48 hours. And this,
But what do you say about, okay, we're getting in the state of Texas, and actually we're talking about education. We had I had a subject today on the assault rifles, so we're going to get to the assault rifles because some of the states are changing their laws on assault rifles. The title of my article this week is, for all the papers that will publish it, I have to qualify that, is your child going to be killed today at school?
Lord help, that is something you have
So
to think
let's
about.
back up. Yes, something. Well, we're past. I have to ask the question. We're past the stage of something we have to think about. It's happening every day.
Every day.
We've had 131 mass killings this year, and this is April.
Well,
but let's go back to housing, because if we live in the greatest state in the America or in the United States, we got the land mass. We do have a border issue, but we've always had a border issue.
Yes.
But we do have an issue with we don't really have a money issue, because I think if you want to make money, go to school and get that education so you can live wherever you want to live. But the land mass, we've got more. That Dallas at one point was getting 300 people a week.
Well, let me tell you this.
What are your thoughts on that?
The border issue will never be fixed, Miss Davis, because they're just, and we have the manpower. Don't let America lie to us. We have the manpower to fix the borders, but they choose not to for their gain. It's funny because we cannot go to these other countries and get in there and get all the benefits like other people from other countries can come into the U.S.
Right.
They can get grants, they can get homes, they can pretty much everything that's available they get. But we go over there, we are denied, we have to live poor, and we cannot even get the system to help us like we help others.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there was this week in America, in Washington, we listened to the TikTok CEOs talk about why their app is not dangerous to the American people. Now, we know we don't sell Chevrolets and Fords in China. But we can. So you have children with cell phones, right?
Yes.
Do they have TikTok on those phones?
No, I have not allowed that.
Really? Applause. You're one of the parents that don't allow them to the TikTok.
I don't even have TikTok. And let me say this quickly why. I am not going to strengthen the hand of the Chinese, Orientals, and Japanese. It's enough that we as a Black people strengthen their hand with the weave, the nails, their stores. Yeah. Because when we go into their stores, they follow us. They've already judged us. They follow us around in their stores. And if I go into their store and they do that to me, I will not buy.
But why do we go in their stores then?
Because we want their product. But why can't we open a store just like them and sell the product to our people and give back to the community?
So that's what you wanted to tell me. Well, I'm just asking the question. Why do we go into their stores? We don't really have to go into their stores.
We really don't. We could come together and we can build our. I miss Black Wall Street. Now, our listeners may say, "Well, she ain't even that old to even know about Black Wall Street." I've heard the stories. I know the history. We used to have banks. You know, we used to have stores, this, that. And I just want to speak to some of our wealthy brothers that are listening today. Let's create Wall Street for the Black back and give back to our communities, because our communities are hurting, our communities are dying, and we need it back.
Okay. I'm going to agree with that. Are you familiar with, I just wrote a story on Leon Sullivan, who started in 1934, the OIC program. So you have, how old are your children again?
8 and 11, and I have some grown ones.
Okay. So you started over again.
I did. Don't remind me.
I mean, I just thought I'd throw that in. It was just, that's what I love about being a talk show host. A lot of times say what comes to my mind. But no, I think that's, it gives you a lot of wealth and knowledge.
It has helped me to learn through my children different personalities that we can have in the home.
Different personalities.
Yes. Okay. And it has taught me how to learn to work with people with different personalities, whether they're grown or they're children. And one thing I've taught my kids, I've always taught them to do right to people, because you never know your fate in God. Treat them right. And my kids have said, but what if they don't treat me right, Mom? I say, but what did the Bible say? You know, you turn the other cheek. Now, I'm not saying let someone bully you,
right?
But I am saying if they put their hands on you, you correct them and let them know you're not a slave.
Okay. Well, let's talk about guns.
You know what? It is to the point where mothers have to get up as well as fathers and wonder, is my elementary child going to be safe in classroom today? Yeah. And we should not have to even be feeling or even thinking this way. We should be able, the school have our kids, what, how many hours a day?
Well, you have them more than 40 hours.
8 to 3.
You have them more than they're at home during the school season.
Yes, 8 to 3 each day, Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Each month. And I'm just, a lot of this is what's going on in the homes and what's going on with these parents. We got a lot of, and a lot of folks probably is not going to really accept what I'm going to say, but we got a lot of rituals and witchcraft.
Witchcraft?
Oh, yes. And molestation that's going on in the homes and these kids are seeing, taken a part of. They're being sacrificed. They're having to do things, because we know that in the Black race, it used to didn't be heard of molestation.
Or witchcraft.
Or witchcraft. It was really normally in the Caucasian race. They would mess with their own kids. The Black race, oh no, we didn't do that. But now it is over in the Black race. And I don't know what has happened down through the line, but these kids are seeing these things, picking them up, and it is changing our children. And our kids are not getting counseling. They're not talking about it. A lot of these parents are not being at home. They working all the time and not giving the proper attention they need to their children. So therefore, the kids are able to pick up things off of the internet. The kids are able, that we giving them cell phones and not really
not putting that. Well, do we know how to use the cell phones that the parents are giving them, and where are the parental controls? Like you just mentioned to me that your children did not have TikTok on.
Oh, but now he asked, but I said
he
no.
asked. What did he say?
And I said no. Mama, can I get TikTok on my phone? No. And see,
are you paying the bill?
And yes.
Okay.
And a lot of the parents are not saying no. What has happened? We've moved away from no to yes, yes, yes. And then this is why we're getting what we're getting out of our children. They're carrying anger. They're carrying unresolved issues. And so the only way these kids feel that they can release it and get it out, and they're being driven by these dark entities that is in our world and society.
Okay, dark entities, you mean what's on the TikTok, what's on the phone, spirits on
the devil. And I also even want to say this. It's even being driven. A lot of us now, a lot of people will not agree with me on this. Everyone have a freedom of choice. Yes, you do. But a lot of the parents ran and took their kids to get vaccinated when America opened it up. Not knowing what is this going to do to my child when it's already stated it would make them sterile. So if this vaccine is going to make my daughter sterile, I'm also wondering what is it going to do to her emotional state? What is it going to do to her mind?
Did they take the vaccine?
No, I did not allow my kids.
Neither one of your children took the vaccine.
Or me.
Okay.
And the reason being, number one, my doctor instructed me not to because of one of the ingredients in it that he said would tear up my immune system. One, and number two, I prayed. I wasn't led.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of Christians, and once again, you got freedom of choice, but we had a lot of
Christians. We have a lot of people that don't pray either.
Yes, that ran out and got the vaccine and said the Lord told them to. Well, I prayed too, and I prayed, and mine told me not to. And now we got folks.
She's not funny what she's saying. This is Lady Charles, and she has children. What happens in my world is that during Women's History Month, I had a speaking engagement almost every other day. Mm-hmm. And it was in classrooms. I had the program that you came to, the Women's W Luncheon. And at all of these gatherings, the assault rifles come up. Yeah. And the cell phones, because parents don't know how to use those $1,000 phones. They're buying for their children. Is that a yes or a no?
You know what?
What kind of phone did you buy for your children?
You know, I have a Samsung, and my son had a Samsung. And actually, I thought he was really too young at 11 for a phone, but I did it because of the world we live in. You know, I said, if anything happens, you can always contact me. And I guess I just kind of look at where we're going today with Russia, with China, threats, nuclear war, just so much is happening. You don't want to be at work and your child at school and we under attack and you can't get in contact or find your child. These are some serious things to think about. So I think that communication, having the phone is okay, but as you said, we need to put some locks on it, just like TV. We got young kids that are able to watch porn on TV. Why you don't have a parental lock on your cable? You know you got cable, you know it's on there. You got satellite, you know it's on there, and you know you got boys, kids. What do boys want to do? Learn about sex. What do girls want to do? Learn about sex. Yeah. And we're not putting the controls on these communication systems and so forth. Again, our kids are opening so much. They need to be crazy. All this stuff we didn't open them to, and we're not putting a hand on it.
So that would account for the mental illness. I got a call last week on mental illness.
Yes,
and this was from a teacher who's also an associate pastor at a church. And he's in the classroom every day. It wasn't last week. That was a couple of days ago. It was after Palm Sunday. Yeah, so this Sunday's Easter. So he said that a lot of children are having mental illnesses.
That's true, based off of what I just explained to you, what's going on in the homes. But
are they growing up too fast?
But we got a lot of adults with some mental illness.
Well, that's true.
I mean, it's in the church. A lot of church folks with mental illness, and our mental health is important. Now, what's going on? Why
are we always all of a sudden? Now, I know the food is one thing. I've done a ton of shows on food, and I participated in a couple of clinical trials.
Okay.
Where they did have a food. It was AARP and Department of Agriculture. Mm-hmm. Okay. A lot of the food programs that Michelle Obama put in 8 years ago are ending. Mm-hmm. I don't know if parents are aware of that, but things are about to change, or they already have changed.
Already changed.
Oh, and okay.
The people that care about themselves, their health, their children, their families, based with all this hormone and pesticides and stuff they're putting in the foods, you should already be buying organic. And, you know, they tried to come out and say, well, organic is not that good either because it's close to the other ones. No, organic is organic, but you got to do your history too, because remember they were saying there was a lot of folks labeling their stuff as organic, and it wasn't true.
It wasn't organic.
It wasn't organic.
Are you cook? Do you cook at home?
I cook,
or do you go out every day?
I cook. I go out to eat, and even when I cook, or well, when I buy my groceries, I shop at Sprouts. I shop at
love
Whole
that
Foods.
place. I love that place.
And I try to buy a lot of organic because if we notice when we're feeding our children, let's see if you listeners realize this. When you go buy groceries, and if you're not invested in organic and you are buying these non-organic foods and you're cooking, and through the years you start finding out before your daughter gets to a proper age, she already got breast.
That's true. You know what?
Yes.
That's a big subject to me, because I was going to ask. You got a 12-year-old. I have a 12-year-old that I just talked to. She's 12 years old. Well, I thought she was 15 because of the size of her breast.
It's the food. It's the hormones.
Food. Yeah, that's what I'm told.
My son is 11 and my daughter is 8. And so we're finding out the girls will get their cycles are starting earlier than they should. The boys are going through hormonal issues before,
before what age? 14, 15?
I 12 years old.
I was such a runt at 12.
And and I'm just like, we got to really pay attention to what we feed our kids. Even when I go out to eat, I'm looking at the menu, I'm looking at the ingredients in it. Because of course, when we go out to eat, they ain't serving us organic. You very seldom can find places that even have organic on their menu. But I have to know the source of this.
Of the food.
Yes. Where is it coming from? Is this going to be healthy, or is this bad? I'm going to pay for this later. Because with all these hormones and so forth in the foods, then they add their things to it.
We're crossing a lot of lines here, but we're talking about food and children primarily, and actually we're talking about mental health among African Americans. On the screen right now is 20%. Oh my, African American adults are 20% more likely to report psychological distress than white adults. The social problems such as racism, discrimination, and sexism is connected to Black women being prone to mental health issues. That's a big subject with Dallas County. We are addressing it. AARP is addressing it, and the school systems. But what is the responsibility at home? I have to go back to
the home, to the families. Well, let's first start saying, Miss Davis, that now
the parents are not there. We've sort of concluded
we already dealt with that, but if we look at, and I have to go with the order of God. We know it's first God, then it's the man, it is the mom, the wife, and then it is the children.
Okay.
And the problem is a lot of homes are not following the order of God that it was set up. Now I know everybody not Christians, they don't do church, but there's still an order for families that is
there should be an order
being respected.
Yeah,
and then we got to also look at that the men are carrying a lot of toxic masculinity, and they're dealing with things on the inside within themselves from their childhood. And so then when you have a man that is holding toxic masculinity inside him, he's not going to be able to instruct, guide, and train his son the proper way, because the toxicity is going to get in the way of that. And then if we go to the woman, as society is putting out the angry Black woman because she wasn't raised properly, or the angry Black woman is not wanting to submit, and she's allowing her masculinity to come out instead of her femininity. I mean, we can go on and on with this, but when you have all of these things that are in the pot mixed up, you're not going to have a healthy home.
You're not. She's Adrienne Charles with 2 children at home. She has been a part of several discussions we've had on family in the home. Mental illness is part of that. But this week, as I mentioned earlier, the story I'm doing is on the assault rifles. Will your child come home from school this day, this week, this month, or will they be killed at school? What do you do? What is the single most important thing that you ought to be doing? The single most important thing.
Miss Davis, can I interject?
Absolutely.
One thing is, we have to, the society, the world has lied to us. And they have gave us a false hope that family is not important and family is everything. It's even started with God. God honors family, and we have to go back to our families. We have to put structure in the home. We have to put the structure back on the children and let them know the mama, the daddy got to have structure.
We had that discussion with the archbishops. I hope you watched that particular show. Black women. Oh, household headed by women. There is a draft, and it gives you black women and then all women. Gave birth while married. 17% gave birth while 37% versus is that 39% not married, living below the poverty level. Why do we have so many people still living below the poverty level? That's a black demographic. What is wrong? We haven't
They've
improved since
labeled us.
1968.
They've labeled us, Miss Davis.
Well, I mean, they have labeled us, but now I believe in fair play. Have we taken advantage of the programs that we have been offered?
Well,
Okay, let's be fair.
The problem I see with that, Miss Davis, is this. We have a lot of African Americans that are on government assistance. And we have a lot of African Americans that are not, but lower percentage. If you go and do the history, a lot of our black women are on Section 8. They are on housing. They on low income housing apartments. They got vouchers. A lot of our black women. And so what has happened is, this is what Dr. King was trying to tell us. You know, don't be free, but not even just in your freedom, but in your mind. And a lot of us are in slavery in the mind.
Our mindset has not
progressed. We are still in slavery mentality, slavery thinking, slavery living, and we have not freed ourselves to be able to come out of poverty, to be successful, to have the same opportunities that the next man has, because those opportunities are before us. But it's all according to how bad do you want it.
Let's take a little bit of a break. And then I'll come back and wrap up. We're going to talk a little about politics, because early voting in the state of Texas starts April 24th. So who are you voting for? Can we just vote? And is voting the answer to everything? Don't go away. Whew, wow. Right. Again, thanks to all the women that attended the W Luncheon. Women to watch.
Yes, it was an amazing experience. A lot of good stories. And I tell you, just over the years, you have done an awesome job with the women.
The women have given us a lot to write about. Women have given us a lot to talk about. And we now have women in the Senate. We have women in Congress. We have women. Elba Garcia came to the luncheon. She's a county commissioner.
Yes.
And so I think the world is about to change, because women are they're putting their heart and soul into Donald Trump is going to mess it up for just about everything. We need a
woman president. Some of y'all out there that's listening, run for office. Look, you men don't throw nothing at me, but y'all keep messing up America. Give us women a chance.
Well, I want your thoughts before we get away from here, because today is another day. We talked about relationships with Black women currently married. Oh boy, That's a big,
Never
that is
married.
a problem. So let's stay up for a minute. Look at that.
Our number.
Never married. Black
48.
women, 48%. All women, 14%. That's a disparity. Currently married, 20% of Black women are currently married. 40% of all women, 46%. That's encouraging. But when I look at the divorce rate, look at that.
Now the divorce rate is what? 13%.
13% Black race, all women, 12%.
Oh, I got to touch on that, Miss Davis.
Divorces?
I want to touch on divorce half a minute. Currently married and never married.
Okay, you got 30 minutes.
What's
30
happening?
seconds.
What's happening with the divorce is that society is pumping our Black women to make them feel that they don't need a man. Lie. They lied to us, because even the word of God said that two is better than one. Society, this feminist move that's going on in America, a lie. Because we cannot do everything a man could do. We are women. We were made as women. Right. Lie. Currently married. We got a lot of folks that are married, and I don't even just want to touch on the Christian group. How is it that we got all these Christian marriages, but the husband and the man can't get along and work it out, but y'all both saying, I love the Lord? Well, why can't you love each other through the divorce and not get it?
And not get the divorce. Because I think our divorce rate overall, Black, white, Hebrew, everybody, is up past 50%.
And the problem with that is, you know that old saying, too many chiefs, not enough Indians?
Yeah.
There can only be one leader in the home, and that leader needs to be the man.
Thank you.
Your husband. And the never married, the 48%, Lord help us. Now, I say a lot of the men don't want to commit, but I heard some women don't want to commit. But the reason why these men are not wanting to commit to marriage is because they're tired of being disrespected. They're tired of combative women. They're tired of being used, not appreciated. And I'm just hearing from a male perspective, hey, we want to just be respected and appreciated. And the only way to deal with this not committing situation is that the women and the men are going to have to come together to deal with that breakdown
and agree.
And the woman know her place. Because that's the biggest part of it all. You can be successful. You could be a strong, powerful woman. But even in that, know your place.
Adrian Charles, we've been, oh, wow. Now, there's a new, let's talk about this real quick. Educational attainment in Black women. Attended college, bachelor degrees, and higher. Wow, those numbers, now that's amazing. That is surprising.
It really is.
That really is. Less than high school. Wow, let's go just to bachelor's degrees and higher. That is 24% in the Black female versus 33%. That is amazing. And I have to remind our audiences, because I do remember after the civil rights, Benjamin Hooker, one of the major leaders, asked us to send our children to law school. Mm-hmm. So now we have an overabundance of lawyers, not an overabundance. We have a pro rata share of Black lawyers across the United States, because we did just that, which is the reason we have a Supreme Court. There it is again. 59% that
attended college.
An applause.
It does. It does.
And look at the less than high school diploma. Oh, this is magical. This is awesome.
Yes.
So now you see what.
Now, and I was getting ready to say that we as Black women are powerful. And I don't think we realize, the Black woman, how powerful we really are and how we can really change this movement.
We are changing it.
What's going on.
We just need to keep it going.
And come together.
Yes,
together.
Please say that.
Women together, unity. I don't know what it is about the Black race. We have this anger in us, this attitude, something in the blood.
Something's in the blood.
Something in the blood. But we need to lose that and come together, because every Black woman is powerful and unique in her own way. And just imagine if we all come together. That's dynamite.
And that's what these statistics are. And that's what this program is about. Yeah, one question. Oh, that's right. They've been asking us about a fun question. So
what's the question?
When you die, which of these would you do with your cell phone? When you die, Which of these would you do with your cell phone? Bury your phone with you, give it to your spouse, give it to your kids or grandchildren, donate to a cell phone organization, or will it go to a family member, mother, father, sister, brother, or cousin? So when you die, what are you going to do with your cell phone? That is our, what did you call it, Spider? That's like, okay, what are you going to do with your cell phone?
I believe it would be number 5 because
what was number 5?
Number 5 was go to family members, mother, father, sister, brother, cousin. Why? We hold so much information in these phones. We do.
Okay.
We got pictures.
You're saying we didn't share it with anybody else?
Some stuff is private in the phones.
And
some stuff is in these phones that you're going to want your family to have access to. Memories. Some of these phones we're keeping in there like deposit box codes, bank codes.
Okay.
That stuff that is going to need access. You got to come
back. You got to come back on the show. I knew this was kind of having you have so much information. But that was our question. What are you going to do with your cell phone if you happen to die? Read my article this year. I got to go. I'll talk to you later. You're the greatest audience in the world. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Ow.
Was a lovely show today.